Hey, John, it's Rory. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Rory.
All right,
Okay, good.
thank you.
Okay.
It's 6 o'clock, so we'll get started. Good evening, everyone. My name is John Urino. I'm the zoning examiner for the city of Tucson. We have two cases this evening. The first is case TP ENT 1122000003, 6th at Campbell Pad. Mr. Juman, are you ready?
Good evening, Mr. Urino. Yeah, I'm ready. I don't really have a presentation, but I think I can give you an update if that's what you'd like.
Okay, that's fine. And let me just begin by saying I just received from Planning and Development Services Department about a 6-page document that purports to be an agreement between the applicant and the Rincon Heights Neighborhood Association. Are you familiar with that, Mr. Juneman?
I am. I drafted that, so yes.
Well, good work on your part and good work on the part of all the parties. So what I would propose to do, but I'll listen to what you have to say, of course, before doing it. I would propose that we continue the hearing to August 10, 2023, unless you believe that an earlier continuation date would be appropriate, to give you time to make revisions to the PAD document as are outlined in the agreement, as well as to draft the final form of agreement that you have worked out with Rincon Heights. Does that sound agreeable to you, Mr. Juneman?
Well, what we were hopeful for was that we wouldn't need a continuation, and Tim Kinney's on from Rincon Heights, and he and I have worked through this. I say I drafted this, but he and I worked on the terms of this, and I think our thought is that we've got the terms in place. Before we go to mayor and council, we're going to have an agreement signed and fully executed, maybe not recorded, but really just waiting recordation until after mayor and council approves. And that the changes to the PAD are fairly straightforward, and we've outlined them in this document. I know we got it to you late, so you didn't have time to review that, but I think that was what our hope was.
Okay, well, so let me just suggest that we don't have to continue it that far out. I have hearings next week on the 20th. We could continue it to that date. Here's my concern. My concern is that it looks like you've reached an agreement. I don't see anything signed by anybody. So that's a concern. My other issue would be that the PAD document, it looks to me from my cursory review that the revisions to the PAD document won't be that dramatic from what's already in the PAD document, and that could easily be accomplished in a week's time, it looks to me. Of course, I'm not doing the work, so I don't want to speak for you, Mr. Juneman. And the other issue is, there are other parties out there who have made their views known on this case. They're not all represented by Mr. Kinney. So as this is a very late development, I wouldn't want to foreclose anyone who would want to come forward and speak their mind about it. I don't know that anyone has had a chance to look at it. So I'll hear from Mr. Kinney in a minute and then come back to you, Mr. Juneman. But so what I would propose to do then is just continue it 1 week to July 20, 2023 at 6 p.m. Take you guys up first on that time. And maybe between now and then you could get revisions to the PAD document. I hear what you're saying, that the formal executed ancillary agreement will be signed, et cetera, at a later date. Mr. Kinney, does that make sense to you, what I've outlined?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Urino. It does make sense. I agree that we could easily get the PAD changes in the next week. We could probably have a draft of the separate agreement by then, but as you said, and as we know, that that is not quite enough time for us to have an executed agreement. But we would be in support of a 1-week continuance.
All right, Mr. Juniman, will that work for you?
Yeah, Mr. Junior, we can get the pad updates done. You're right, they're not extensive. In fact, most of the provisions are already kind of drafted for this term sheet. So we can have that over to you, I would say by Monday. And as long as you're okay with, I think all of us, Scott and I are both gonna be out of town, but we can join remotely if you're okay with that. And,
Of course.
that-
So here's the other thing. I would like you and Mr. Kinney to work together to share that agreement with other folks who have appeared at these the last hearing on this, to make sure everyone has had a chance to look at it. So I will continue this hearing to July 20, 2023 at 6 p.m. And I want to say, the agreement doesn't come in front of me. That's you guys working that out together, and you present that to mayor and council. They may be interested in that, but that doesn't come to me. But if you can get the revisions to the pad into planning and development services, whatever is comfortable for you guys on that, I don't really care when it hits my desk. I'll have time to review it before the continued hearing on July 20th. But I want to say to the parties, Mr. Cummings, in particular, Mr. Kinney, though, and your clients as well, you started on this road a while ago. I appreciate that. But I think you've really come to a place now where you will both have the possibility of a fantastic redevelopment of those properties, something that you can be proud of, and I think the community can be proud of, but also have worked through the process and worked with the neighbors and the neighborhood association in a way that's very commendable. So I want to thank you for that. So with that, unless Mr. Kinney or Mr. Juniman, you have anything else that you want to say right now, I'm going to continue the hearing to July 20, 2023. Thank you on that.
One thing, Mr. Urino, if that's
Sure.
okay, just to address some of the concerns that I'm seeing in the chat here. We don't have an actual agreement yet. We don't have it written down. We have a term sheet. Those things were, the terms in there were voted on by the Rincon Heights Neighborhood Association Board several weeks ago. They reflect the things that were agreed on. And now we're going to move forward to getting a written agreement, which will have to go before the board for a formal final approval.
Well, thank you for that. Let me just state clearly my intention. My intention is that you become as comfortable as you need to, Mr. Kinney, to satisfy yourself that the agreement will be the agreement that that you and your client is content with it, because I intend to take the matter up at next week's continued hearing and then close the hearing and make my recommendation based on the record. So do what you need
Thank
to
you.
do between now and then to be sure you have what you need. All right? Sounds good. So we're continuing that hearing. The next case for this evening is case TP ENT 0523-00012 La Estancia Pad. Mr. Beal, are you presenting the staff report?
Yes, I am.
Please go ahead, sir.
Okay, so this is a request by Lexi Willett of the Planning on behalf of WAA Investment Holdings LLC for a major change to the La Estancia Pad 7, to reduce the prescribed setback of 280 feet to 65 feet for residential development adjacent to industrially zoned properties in Development Area 18. The major change request also includes some corrections to some minor Scribner errors and inconsistent references within the pad document. Development 18 is a 25-acre property located along the eastern edge of the pad, adjacent to Kolb Road and south of Camino Boladeras. Development Area 18 is designated as commercial with C within the pad, allowing uses permitted by the C1 zone per the city's Unified Development Code, and residential uses as permitted in Development Area 15 high-density residential with a maximum density of 36 residential units per acre. The request to reduce the prescribed setback of 280 feet to 65 feet for residential development is a major change to the PAD, and as it varies or changes the PAD policy, changes the designated buffer, which was established to adapt the PAD to specific site characteristics, and it varies the building setback by more than 10% of the delineated in the PAD. The PAD was approved in 1999 by Mayor and Council with the goal of creating a 555-acre master plan community for the development of homes and associated support services on the side of Interstate 10 between Kolb Road and Wilmot Road. The PAD established a regulatory guide for future development of a sustainable, balanced community of residential, office, commercial, public facilities, and light industrial uses. This mix of residential, commercial, service, and light industrial opportunities were looked upon as an opportunity to support current and future employees at the nearby University of Arizona Science and Technology Park and other newly developed employment centers in the area. The applicant's request outlines that as a result of the growing workforce in the general vicinity, the recent shift in development trends due to e-commerce and remote working, and concentrated efforts between the master development and the city, La Estancia PAD, has evolved into a more sought-after residential community. The applicant delineates in the request that development area 18 limits the ability to accommodate new housing in this area of the PAD due to 280-foot setback from adjacent industrial zones immediately outside the PAD district. The setback and limited area, coupled with the property's irregular high labor costs and the abundance of more suitable and accessible commercial and industrial properties on Kolb Road and Wilmot Road, have stifled the property's owner's ability to attract commercial users. Hence, the property owner is requesting to reduce the prescribed setback of the 280 feet to allow the property to economically develop, given recent market trends with residential uses, and maximize its ability to contribute to the city's housing needs. The proposed 65-foot building setback still ensures compatibility with industrial properties despite its reduction from 280 feet, as it places a residential setback within development 18 that is comparable to what would be required by the UDC if the industrial properties were to develop or redevelop. The reduction in the setback to allow for the developing of residential uses in development area 16 is consistent with the intent and purpose of the La Estancia PAD, provides a greater than typical setback, which is consistent with the standards found in the UDC. There's also direction found to provide for a variety of needs, and appears to a recent amendments to the Rincon Southeast Subregional Plan to meet the growing demand for more housing through plan changes for residential uses, i.e. master plan residential projects. And then, as you well notice, Mr. Zoning Examiner, the PAD, you have the materials of what the what those changes are in the PAD. This report is that the change is consistent with the policy direction of both Plan Tucson and the Rincon Southeast Subregional Plan. And as to date, there's been one protest, and it's within just outside the 150 foot, but within the 400 feet notice.
Thank you, Mr. Beal. Ms. Wallet, would you like to be heard on behalf of the applicant? You're muted.
Thank you for that. You'd think we'd have this down by now.
Nope.
But good evening, everyone. My name is Lexi Well, and I'm a project manager at the Planning Center. We're located at 2 East Congress in downtown Tucson. Mr. Beal did a great job explaining our request. So I just want to highlight one thing briefly, and that's the public outreach that we did prior to our application submittal, in recognition that a lot of this setback was put in place, when this PAD was coming on board back in the 1990s. And so much of that area surrounding this site was vacant and nothing existed out there. And so fast forward 25 years now, we have a robust and vibrant residential community that is nearly built out. And so we're looking at how to address housing needs as well as accommodate a land use that makes sense as a transition between the industrial properties and the single family residential homes that are in place. As Mr. Beal mentioned, the property is currently designated as commercial. So when it comes to a land use intensity, that site can currently house, 40-foot tall buildings. So it can take some intensity. So we feel by bringing on a multifamily product, that is a good transition between the two uses to complement the entire area. So as part of the early outreach, we met, myself and Linda Morales, the CEO of the Planning Center. We sent letters to all of the property owners within the industrial park just to make sure that we were giving them the courtesy prior to embarking on this process, because, in all reality, the setback was put to protect them. So we felt it was appropriate to start with them. We met with Sassel Industries and Skyline Assayers, as well as communicated with a couple others. Some concerns came out just from trash and more or less unwanted activities that are occurring on the property. And I think as a result of any type of development, some of those will get cleared up. Our meetings with the folks in the industrial park that responded to our request to meet, they suggested that their operations have drastically changed as the surrounding area has changed. So they're not concerned with an incompatibility issue anymore. So moving through this process, we wanted to make sure that we were giving the neighbors and everyone surrounding that property and the industrial park some coverage, because we recognize we're bringing in. So initially, we recommended a foot increase in the wall. Currently, the PAD requires a 5-foot wall. We went with the 6-foot wall. Staff has recommended a 7-foot wall, and we're in agreement with that condition to make the wall on the south and east boundaries adjacent to those properties a 7-foot wall. And then we are also in agreement with the recommendation of placing mature vegetation 25 feet apart. So with that, I welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. I don't have any questions at this time. Would
Thank you.
anyone else in the audience like to be heard on this case? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing on this case. Thank you very much, Ms. Willett. Have a pleasant evening, everyone. Good night.
You as well. Thank you so much.